Good morning, dear students. Today we're going to explain a lesson in biology which is known as the animal tissues. Let's start to see the animal tissues. First of all is the epithelial tissues, which is found in the inner cavities of many parts in our organs inside the body. For example, if you're going to talk about the squamous epithelial tissue, it is found in the inner cavities of the blood vessels and the lung alveoli. Lung alveoli is the last part in the lungs, where exchange of gas takes place. As we're going to talk about the cuboidal, it is found in the inner cavity of kidney tubules. For each two kidneys, there are two tubules which gets out from it. If we're going to take a TS in this tubules, we're going to see a type of epithelial tissue which is the cuboidal tissue. If we're going to talk about the columnar epithelial tissue, these types of tissues is found in the alimentary canal. Any part in the digestive system, if we take a TS, the first cavity in the inner cavity is known as the columnar tissue. Now we're going to see the epithelial tissue in the next slide. There are types of different structures of the epithelial tissue. The first one looks as if it is a scale of a fish, which is the simple squamous. Why is it simple? Because it is made of only one layer. The next simple tissue, which is the cuboidal, which we said before that is found in the inner cavity of the kidneys, tubules, which part is made of the same one layer of tissue. As we're going to talk about the columnar, there is one type of columnar which is made of one only part and one layer, which is in the inner cavity of any alimentary canal organs. The only stratified which is going to be explained this year is the stratified squamous. The difference between the simple squamous and the stratified squamous is the simple is only one layer, while the stratified is made of many layers of squamous. Next slide, we're going to see an example of a living organism, which is a dog. We're going to see each type of epithelial tissue according to the part inside the body. If we're going to talk about the first type of epithelial tissue, which is the columnar tissue, we can see in this slide that the arrows are pointing to the part of the small intestine. So if we're going to talk about the inner part of the small intestine, it is known as the simple columnar epithelial tissue. As we're going to talk about the lungs, if we see the lungs in the structure of this dog, the last part of the lungs is the alveoli. The inner cavity of the alveoli is made of what? Is made of squamous epithelium. Now we can see a part of the kidneys where two tubules comes out. If you're going to take a TS in these tubules, this type of tissue is known as a cuboidal epithelial tissue. Next slide. We're going to talk about the second type of tissue, which is the connective tissue. Connective tissue means that they are connected to each other. Cells are connected to each other. The first type of the connective tissue is the proper connective tissue. These are found in the parts of the alimentary canal organs. If we're going to see the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine are parts of the digestive system. If we hold these organs away from each other, we will find a simple layer which is found that connects all the digestive organs with each other. This is known as the proper connective tissue. Now we are going to talk about the second type, which is the skeletal connective tissue. There are two types of skeletal connective tissue, which are the bone and the cartilage. The difference between bone and cartilage, the bone is a part which is rigid inside our body, like the whole skeleton in our body. This is made of completely bones. Why is it rigid and strong? Because the matrix which carries the cells contain calcium salts, while the cartilage is different. It is elastic and flexible. Why? Because the matrix that carries the cells doesn't contain calcium salts. That's the difference between bone and cartilage. These two cells, or these two types of epithelial tissue, connective tissue, carry what? Carry the matrix, which carries what? The cells. The difference between the matrix of the bone and the matrix of the cartilage, the matrix of the bone is rigid because it contains calcium salts, while that of the cartilage is what? Flexible. Now we're going to talk about the last connective tissue, which is the vascular connective tissue. There are two types of vascular connective tissue, which is blood and lymph. The difference between them, the blood is many types of cells. The plasma, which is the matrix, carries many types of cells, which are red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. These are carried by the blood plasma, which is the matrix of this tissue, while the lymph is responsible for the white blood cells, which is responsible for the natural immune of the body. Now we're going to see in the next slide a part of the body which contains different types of connective tissue. So if we're going to talk about the first connective tissue, which is found in the middle of the figure you are seeing, you can find that it is a small canal and it gets larger and larger around this canal. This is considered the bone, which is the part in the hand which is very solid. So if we're going to talk about the cartilage, which is beside it, is what is the part in between each two bones. This is the cartilage, as we see in this figure, which is more flexible than the bone. And if we're going to talk about the last figure, which is the blood, they are parts of cells like white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets, which are found in the blood plasma that carries all these types of cells. In the next slide, we are going to take the third type of the animal tissue, which is the muscular tissue. Muscular tissue, the function of the muscular tissue is for what? Contraction and relaxation for movement. There are three types of muscular tissues, which are striated muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. As we're going to see in the next slide, the difference between these three types. If we're going to talk about the skeletal muscle tissue, as we can see in this figure, they are like fibers. Each fiber contains many nucleus, so we name it multinucleated, okay? And between each one, there are dark and light bands. So if we're going to say where are these types of tissue, it is the muscles that covers the whole skeleton of the body. So if we're going to see if it's voluntary or involuntary, of course it is voluntary, because I can control the muscles of my hands, I can control the muscles of the legs, therefore it is voluntary. But the problem here, these muscles, if we work with it too much, it gets fatigued and tired. So let's talk about the second one, which is involuntary muscles. We have two types of involuntary muscles, which are the smooth muscles and the cardiac muscles. The smooth muscles are the muscles that are found in the digestive system organs, where it contracts and relaxes. We can't control these muscles. The muscles, the outer muscles of the stomach, cannot be controlled by man. It is controlled by itself. So there are involuntary muscles. And the cardiac muscles are involuntary muscles too. The difference between the cardiac muscle and the smooth muscles, all the smooth muscles are only made of one cell, and each cell contains of what? One nucleus. But the cardiac muscle has characteristics of both striated and smooth muscles. They are made of fibers, but each fiber contains what? Only one nucleus, which is different from the what? Striated muscles. As we are going to see in the next slide, other figure that shows all the types of muscles. As we can see in the figure, number one, there are muscles that covers, for example, the legs. We can find that they are made of fibers, and each fiber contains dark and light bands, which are types of proteins found in the muscles, and each fiber contains many nucleus, not only one nucleus. If we're going to talk about the smooth muscles, we can see that each muscle or each cell contains just one nucleus, opposite to what? The skeletal muscle. As for the cardiac muscle, which is the heart muscle, it is characteristic of both smooth and striated. So why it is smooth? Because each fiber contains what? One nucleus. Why is it considered striated? Because they are made of fibers that contains dark and light bands. Now we're going to see the next slide, which is the last type of the animal tissue, the nervous tissue. It is responsible for the coordination of the whole body. We can't perform any function unless there's what? A nervous tissue. We can see in the figure the structure of the nerve cell. The nerve cells are joined to each other by the last part of the first nerve cell and the first part of the next nerve cell. The last part is the terminal arborization, which is joined to the dendrites of the following cell. So what is the function of these types of cells? They are responsible to transmit impulses or messages from organs of the body, for example, the hand, to the brain and spinal cord, and vice versa, where the brain and spinal cord send messages to take action against anything. This is very important. If there is no nervous tissue in our body, the human body will be considered a dead body. I hope you have understood this lesson, and I hope you good luck in your exam. Thank you very much.